Oh, hey Samsung. Oh, hey Google. What do you have there? That looks really cool. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's our new phone that we're working on. Oh, that's really neat. Do you mind if I take a look at it for a second? Sure, here you go. Wow, this looks really cool. Yeah, it's got our new design, a pretty advanced camera system that we've been working on. Our newest processor, we've been working on this thing for a few years now. We're really excited for it. Listen, do you mind if I just slap a few new pieces into the processor and put a Pixel logo on it and call it ours? I mean, I guess if you really need it, I mean, cool. Don't worry, it'll be great. I promise. Awesome. Don't worry. The Pixel 6 is the first fully Google phone. To hear Google say it, it sounds like this is the first true Pixel device that they've ever launched. From the distinctive design, to the custom tensor processor, to the tighter integration between software and hardware, this is the first Google phone in a way that no other device ever before it ever was. Yet, I'm not quite sure how much I believe Google on all of these claims, and today I'm going to tell you why. First, I've got to cover a little bit of history. Back in 2017, Google began a deal to acquire some engineers from HTC. This collaboration notably produced the first Google Pixel, which was very similar in design and construction compared to other HTC devices of that era. The first Google Pixel, to paraphrase from Forbes magazine, was designed by HTC with Google providing the direction. This style continued with the Pixel 2, although LG had a significant hand in designing and manufacturing the 2XL. But with the HTC deal, Google began moving more towards in-house design and engineering, something not seen since their acquisition and later sale of Motorola. But by having these in-house engineers and designers, Google could take on more of the design process themselves and then ship out the manufacturing to another company. The HTC deal was completed in 2018. Coincidentally, the same year Google announced that they were designing their own mobile chips, so they could compete with Apple and provide more innovative products. As Google said, the Pixel 3a was the first Pixel to be mainly completed by this HTC design team, who took on the lion's share of the work. And to the best of our knowledge, this HTC team has been working on Pixels ever since. But what's curious to me is how much the Pixel 6 looks like a Samsung device. Take the Pixel 6 Pro. If you look at it from the front, it looks strikingly similar to a Galaxy Note 10, with very similar hole punch size and placement, similar curved edges, and similar bezels all around the display. Coincidentally, Google ditched the symmetrical bezels and the off-centered hole punch and moved to a centered hole punch, something they didn't do on the Pixel 4a, 4a 5G, Pixel 5, and Pixel 5a 5G. It's no secret that Samsung manufactures a lot of components, from displays to cameras to different processors and microchips. For example, the Pixel 6 uses a 90Hz AMOLED display manufactured by Samsung. The 6 Pro uses a 120Hz LTPO display also manufactured by Samsung. Additionally, there are at least 8 microchips in the motherboard of the 6 and 6 Pro, all manufactured by Samsung. But okay, moving beyond the usual microprocessors that show up in a lot of devices, there's a piece that Google is the most proud of with the Pixel 6 and 6 Pro, the Tensor chip. Google teased this chip years ago when they described how they were working on new Pixel devices that were more opinionated, more advanced, more unique, and more Googly than any device before it. Work started in 2017 when Google realized they couldn't take a piecemeal approach to accelerating AI models. The chip was codenamed Whitechapel. It was located under the Samsung Semiconductor System Large-Scale Integration Division of Samsung. The Tensor chip has an internal model number of S5P9845, which is very similar to the model number of the Exynos 2100 from Samsung. AnandTech has an amazing and very in-depth write-up about the architecture and design of the Tensor chip, and especially how it compares to the Exynos device. But in overall summary, the Tensor chip shares a lot of the building blocks and design of the Exynos from Samsung. Google certainly had their hardware and software changes, such as a different CPU core cluster. Tensor uses 2 high-performance cores, 2 medium-performance cores, and 4 low-power cores, instead of the typical 1, 3, 4 design, respectively. Another plain Google addition is the TPU, which stands for Tensor Processing Unit, which is designed to accelerate machine learning tasks. After the purely Google changes, there are the blended decisions, like the ISP, or Image Signal Processor, which is the part of the SoC that deals with photography and advancing computational photography and now videography modes. Lastly, there are the purely Samsung additions, like the modem. The modem is the chip that enables cellular connectivity. This has been a fairly controversial piece of the design, as normally modems are integrated into the SoC to save power. This modem, however, isn't. It's not integrated into Tensor. In my belief, this is one of the issues that was causing such poor battery life for people with the Pixel 6, especially in the earlier days, and something that I've noticed too when I'm just using the Pixel on cellular data. So, from the looks of it, it appears that Samsung and Google have collaborated pretty closely on this device, from the screen to design elements, the microprocessors to the SoC itself, which is actually really interesting when you look at the recent relationship between Google and Samsung. Samsung now ships Google Messages with a One UI skin as the default messaging app on their phones. And recently, some of the design trends in the Pixel theme have followed conventions of One UI. Now, of course, there's gotta be a reason for all of this influence on each other. My theory is that Google and Samsung have each realized that the other one has strengths where their weaknesses lie. I'll explain. Google has been making smartphones for the past 6 years or so, which, while not that long in the grand scheme of things, is decently long for a smartphone manufacturer. And yet, almost every one of their devices, at least in the high end, have had some issue associated with them, pretty much always due to hardware. The bad screen, the notch, poor battery life, poor RAM performance, and Samsung has had very poor reviews, even recently some critiques with One UI in their software department. I think Google and Samsung see a mutually beneficial relationship in helping each other while fixing the weaknesses that each of them has respectively. Think about this. If Google sells a bunch more Pixels, then Samsung has to make them all the hardware to sell. And if Samsung gets better software that sells more devices, well, Google now has more devices to advertise on and collect information about you, the consumer. And especially in the US, the main smartphone players are Apple and Samsung. Samsung has a reason to try and improve on their software with Google's help to sell more devices, and Google has an incentive to help them do that. But Samsung is also okay with making pieces for the Pixel, as it's difficult to see the line ever really become a threat to Samsung's business, even with the recent advances in Pixel sales. All in all, how much Samsung is there in the Pixel 6? A lot. I don't really care, since Samsung makes great phones. I'm always for more competition, especially in the US market where I'm based. So if Google and Samsung want to work together to make better products, I'm all for it. Maybe that competition isn't actually competition, and it's just two companies deciding to work together because it's beneficial for each other. What I do know is that Samsung, they did a great job with this Pixel.